Welcome back to Hardball. Senator Ted Cruz, you know him, whose extreme tactics or antics have angered many of his Senate colleagues, is the perverse Pied Piper right now for a crew of fringe House members who have rendered our government useless right now. Robert Costa of the Washington Post describes the Wednesday night gathering in Cruz's Senate office where 13 House members ate pizza, drank Dr. Pepper, and decided to derail the immigration bill. But as Costa reports, Cruz tried to hide his fingerprints. Quote, careful not to be viewed as orchestrating action in the House, even though he holds regular so-called fellowship meetings with members. Cruz listened quietly and nodded along as his guests laid out their concerns and discussed possible demands for Boehner. He agreed that Boehner was distracted, I love this line, and said they should stick to their principles. The freshman senator also reminded them, the House members, to be skeptical of promises from House leaders, particularly of show votes, legislative action designed to placate conservatives that carry little, if any, weight. Well, that quiet assurance was enough to persuade the conservatives to effectively topple Boehner's plan. Ted Cruz, a freshman senator, pulling the strings in the House, all with an eye towards disrupting the government. Joining me right now is Congresswoman Barbara Lee, Democrat of California, and MSNBC contributor and Washington Post opinion writer Jonathan Capehart. Congresswoman Lee, I think there must be some lack of what? Oh, pride? How about pride? When I worked on the Hill, the House members referred to the Senate as another body. They didn't even talk about it hardly, except in some vague reference. Here you have this character, this, I don't know, Count of Monte Cristo, whatever you call him. He shows up. He starts orchestrating the place like he's the boss. I've never heard of that happen. And he's a far right-winger. He's so much like Joe McCarthy in his attacks on people's character. And now he's bringing down the Republican Speaker of the House.
But when you worked here, Chris, you did not have a hardcore Tea Party Republican base, really, and that's what it is. And I suggest to you that if Senator Cruz really wants to direct the House of Representatives, perhaps he should run for the House of Representatives and then run for Speaker. I mean, this is outrageous. We do have three branches of government, and we have the Congress comprised of the House and the Senate. He is a member of the Senate, and they should develop their own agenda. We develop ours.
What's his hold on these guys?
I'm not so sure what his hold is, except for the fact that he really speaks to the fringe, to those who want to actually dismantle government, who want to provide little or no safety net, who want to provide no government protections. I'm not sure what it is, but of course you hear that he perhaps may be running for president. I mean, my gosh, can you imagine? And so there's, you know, a number of people who really believe in that ideology. It's strictly ideology. It's a far right-wing ideology. It really does not believe in government by the people, by the people, you know, and for the people.
Congresswoman, hold on for a minute. I've got Jonathan Capehart of the Post here. You know, Jonathan, the irony is, and I don't like to get ethnic with people, you have a right to do whatever you want to be. I don't think people should be by identity politics. But here's an Hispanic guy, Cruz, and he's making his name basically right now going after immigrants. Right. And that's what he's doing. In this case, that's what he's doing.
Yes, that's what he's doing. But to answer the question that you asked the Congresswoman, why is he able to do this, and why are they latching on to him? Because he's leading them. There's a leadership vacuum in the House that we have witnessed since 2011, since the Tea Party came in there. Yeah. These folks are the folks that Ted Cruz is leading, they're not fringe. They are powerful. And so now you've got Ted Cruz who comes in. He was only elected in 2012, Chris.
It's hard to believe.
He's only been there since January, and so he goes over to the House. He's leading people who have been causing Speaker Boehner problems since 2011, Chris, and holding up legislation. And so now, if Ted Cruz were in the House and he were Speaker of the House, he would be effectively leading his caucus. Yeah, Chris, let me just say I agree, because when you remember, if you remember the shutdown, I mean, he actually was the one who led this terrible debacle of the government shutdown. And so you're right. He sees himself as a leader, and where there's a void, he's trying to lead.
Well, Cruz denied that, of course, that he told the Republican House members to blow up the bill last night. Indeed, he took offense, saying the suggestion by some that those House members are unable to stand up and fight for their own conservative principles is offensive and belittling to House conservatives. They know what they believe, and it would be absurd for anyone to try to tell them what to think. Congresswoman, that seems to be laying it on a little bit paternalistically, like I wouldn't tell these young children how to vote. I just did. But now I'm not going to say I did it because that would embarrass them. I wonder why they're not embarrassed that they're meeting with this guy.
Well, I certainly would be, but, you know, and I have to just say, this moment is a very serious moment. We have a huge humanitarian crisis on our border, and we have many, many children who need our help. Actually, the United Nations Commission on Refugees indicated that 60% of these children fleeing these countries are fleeing violence and deserve international protection. So I don't know why Senator Cruz is playing with this issue and why he's trying to make sure that the House Democrats follow a very, very hardcore, non-humanitarian approach to this issue of the children, which is a very grave and very important issue that we're dealing with.
I'm going to go to Jonathan, and I'll go back to the Congresswoman. The same last question. Do you think the president's going to go ahead and do this by executive order, deal with this crisis during the next 4 weeks?
He's going to do something. I mean, the last time I was on this show earlier this week, the AP story came out that the president was looking at executive action on work permits. Today in the briefing room, he made it very clear. But he made it very clear today, because they have not acted, I am forced to do something.
Well, Congresswoman Lee, I'm wondering whether the Republicans are waiting like with a mousetrap. They're saying, okay, we've encouraged him to go fix the problem. The minute he fixes it, we're going to hit him.
You know, they're trying to set him up, but you know what? I'm very proud of the president. He has to do what is right. He recognizes this is a humanitarian crisis, and he's the commander-in-chief. He's the leader of our country, and he needs to do the right thing and make sure that this crisis and these children are afforded due process, and that we move forward and ensure that the resources are there to provide the type of assistance that we need to provide. And that does not mean we don't care about border security or the drug cartels, but what is important is that we look at this in a comprehensive way and understand that comprehensive immigration reform is an issue that we still haven't addressed. We have the votes for it, and it's because of this speaker, who once again is not leading on this, that we have not been able to vote on this where we have the votes, and that's the issue.
Congressman Barbara Lee, thanks so much for joining us in Northern California, a great member of Congress. Thank you on a Friday night for joining us, and thank you, of course, Jonathan Capehart, for joining us from the Washington Post. Up next.